Well, welcome back to the shop. Again, working on the fender gaps. The biggest challenge, as you know, with these vehicles is there was a 1/8 inch tolerance, which means coming off the assembly line, the parts could actually be misaligned by 1/8 of an inch, and that still passed quality control back then. So us trying to now put these cars together and putting them together with like a 1/16 of an inch tolerance or even a 32nd of an inch tolerance is very hard to do because the panels just aren't made that way. So especially now with aftermarket panels and original panels, again, a bit of a pain, but it's coming along well, and I'm documenting that as well. But one of the things I was going to take a bit of a break on and work on is the windshield washer pump as well as the pulse wipers. Now, pulse wipers, there's a switch on the bottom. As you can see, there's the pins for it. And this switch, when you step on this pedal, there's a white button there. You can see the button being depressed and released. So when I initially step on the pedal and just apply light pressure to it, I break that switch, or that switch now makes contact and it activates the wipers, which means if you're driving through just a little bit of rain, you know, all you have to do is touch the pedal, release it, the wipers will go one time and park again. This is actually kind of neat because I don't really need to put in a pulse wiper system. You know, I can just use this pedal. But the pedal also had a second operation. There was a rubber diaphragm in here, and what would happen is your windshield washer reservoir was sitting in the front of the car. A tube came into the cab of the vehicle, went to this diaphragm, and then when you applied pressure to that diaphragm, what it would do is it would push fluid up and squirt out onto your windshield. Now, I don't like that idea. I hate the idea of bringing washer fluid into the cab and something goes wrong. If a line pops off or the diaphragm starts to leak, you're going to have windshield washer fluid in your car. And I thought, well, why don't I bypass that? So I'm going to leave the switch alone here at the front. But what I'm going to do is incorporate a micro switch, and remember I talked about the micro switches earlier, that when I press the pedal, it presses the micro switch, and what the micro switch will do then is fire up a basic washer pump, which is going to be underneath the hood right beside the reservoir. So now what will happen is that when I step on this pedal, I want to activate this switch so that I can press halfway, and of course the wipers will pulse. I press a little bit more, it activates the squirters, and that way there I'm holding the foot on the pedal. I can press the squirters as long as I want. I release the pedal and the wipers will still make that last pass and then park, right? So, you know, like almost like a modern vehicle. So what do I need to do that? Well, obviously I need a micro switch. I need a switch that when I press on it, it activates the washer. Next thing I need is I'm going to create a bracket. Now what this bracket is going to do, I'm going to weld it onto the plate here, and then this micro switch will then rivet into that plate, and that'll hold the micro switch so that when this comes down, it'll hit. But you also need to put in something that's going to stop it, because you don't want to crush the micro switch, because basically this can depress all the way down to the ground like that, right? And we don't need it to go all the way down. What we're going to do is we're going to place in that stopper, and now with that stopper in place, and I can adjust it, we can make it so that it stops, and I can adjust it so that whenever that ends up hitting the switch, once it makes contact with the switch and activates it, I can use my meter to make sure that the switch is contacting and closing. Then I can adjust this stopper, lock it in place, and that way there from now on I can press lightly, get the wipers, press hard, get the windshield washer squirters to go, and then it automatically, again, recycles the wipers and parks them. So really all I need to do is take this plate that I created, and again, like all I did is it's a bent piece of metal with a couple of holes in it, and those holes align with the holes in there, and that of course that allows me just to take standard rivets and rivet that onto it. But the first thing I'm going to need to do is put that in and weld it in place. So I'll see you in a few seconds. So I've welded the bracket in. So what I've done is hard to see because it's black on black, but what we have here is the bracket that I've welded into the part where the diaphragm used to go, right? So now that allows me to squeeze down. Now what it's also going to do now is that bracket is where I'm going to mount the micro switch, right? So now the micro switch gets mounted, and so when obviously you can see the micro switch sticks up, and therefore this will come down and trigger the switch. So the last thing we need to do is I'm going to take this now, mount it on, and then after I mount it on, I'm going to put in the stopper, because I still need to stop this and adjust it so that once it triggers the micro switch, then it hits this stopper and therefore it doesn't get any pressed anymore or will hurt the switch. So basically, I'm just going to pop rivet that in, and then we'll put this all together. Okay, so pop riveted in. So what we have is our micro switch now has been pop riveted into that plate that I had welded in. So now, as we can see, when we start to depress, it opens up the back. So at this point in time, this is open here, which means the wipers are going. It hasn't yet activated the switch. Press a little further and the switch now engages, which means these two contacts will short out and therefore run power to the pump. Now, the last thing I need to do is to protect the switch is I need to now install the stopper, and I can adjust the height of it until that brings the button to a stop, but you can see it's only half depressed the micro switch, which means the micro switch is active, but I'm not over depressing the micro switch, right? It's just a click click, and I'll just adjust this and then throw some black paint on that. And what we've got now is a conversion to a power pump as opposed to a diaphragm pump. And like I said, just going to make a few adjustments on this, make sure that the switch is operating. I'll put my meter on it. I'll press on this a few times, make sure that the stopper is engaging correctly, that the micro switch is activating properly, and we're done. Another project on the way. I guess I'll get back to those fenders. Talk to you soon.